Thank you. We're going to have fun tonight. I want to mention just a few things to you before getting into the message. So this will take a little while. First of all, out on our book table, we've got some of our latest magazines, Prophecy in the News Monthly, free. Go back there and get one and read it. Who knows? You might enjoy what you read and enough to want to subscribe. And if you do subscribe, and the Lord comes before your subscription runs out, see Him about the refund. Okay? I have a number of books, one called The Mystery of the Menorah and the Hebrew Alphabet, Guardians of the Grail and the Men Who Planned to Rule the World, The Minor Prophets called They Pierced the Veil and Saw the Future, and one of my most favorite, Hidden Prophecies in the Psalms. You realize next month on the 18th of September we enter Psalm 102, in my humble opinion, of course. And then the sequel to the Psalms, Hidden Prophecies in the Song of Moses. Now, these 5 books sell in the bookstores for about $12 each. You can get them all for $33.95 plus a year subscription to our magazine. Such a deal. I should change my name, huh? And these are our videos called Revealing Revelation. And what's different about these 12 studies and the 22 chapters of Revelation is that they are given from the perspective of rabbinical interpretation, the various tools of interpretation that John tells us about in chapter 1 that most commentaries just simply overlooked. Chapter 1 gives us all of, at least alludes to and references the many different methods of interpretation, such as the menorah designs, the alphabetic design of the Hebrew alphabet, 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, 22 chapters in the book of Revelation, and each chapter conforms to the meaning of that particular letter in the Hebrew alphabet. So I hope you'll perhaps get these. These have been selling, the 3 video set, for $49.95. You can get it on the book table for $30. But now, I want to tell you about my latest book. This is called On the Eve of Adam. We just received from the printers today enough copies for everybody in this auditorium. And I hope you'll get it. In fact, I'll be back there after the meeting tonight autographing the book for those of you who'd like to have it. And it's called On the Eve of Adam, which means before Adam was created. Just before God created Adam, He had a plan. Adam was not an afterthought. God did not create man because He was lonely. God had a battle going on with Lucifer. And He created Adam and Eve for the purpose of defeating Lucifer. And that's what this book is all about. And it's a fascinating book. It will show you all the way through the Old Testament in many different chapters, God's plan of the ages, pre-written in the history of mankind. And so I encourage you to get the book. It's going to sell in the bookstores for $13.95. You can get it on the book table for $12 here at the conference. I hope you'll get it. Now I want to talk to you just briefly about my recent heart surgery. You like that? That is an angiogram. And the aorta artery came out of the top of my heart and comes down, and you can see what happens to it at a certain spot just as it turns to begin to descend, and it supplies blood to the lower half of my body. Now, at the top, there are 3 arteries that supply blood to my brain in the upper half of my body. But before I was born, when I was still in my mother's womb, her blood supplied life for the fetus or for the baby. And an artery came through the navel and up to this particular spot on the aorta. But in the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, the blood is taken into the Holy of Holies. See? The blood is changed from that of the mother to that of the baby on the 10th day of the 7th month. Check it out. Your gynecologist can tell you. You can look it up in the encyclopedia, I guess, medical encyclopedias. And when that happens, then the baby puts out hormones to shrivel up, shrink, and destroy that particular artery that is no longer needed. Well, in my case, when the shrinking took place, the hormones grabbed hold of that aorta and just clamped it down right at that very spot. So that it's a 1/2 inch diameter on either side of it, but right at that spot it comes down to about a 1/16 of an inch diameter. Was not getting enough blood supplied to the lower half of my body. So, after taking the angiogram, they took this MRI, and if you'll notice, there is the coarctation, as they call it, a birth defect, and I lasted 62 years with that thing. And then all of these other little arteries grew up. They're called collateral arteries, spontaneously grew up to help bypass the problem and supply blood to my backbone and to the lower parts of my body. And the doctor told me, he said, you know, those are not supposed to be there. I said, you mean then it's a miracle? He said, God's smart. That's what he said. I asked the nurse, I said, how many people my age do you see with this condition? She said, you're the first. I said, I don't understand. What do you mean? She said, nobody survives to your age with this condition. Nobody. I asked the doctor, I said, how old should I have been when I died? He said, not a day over 40. He said, I've done 5,000 babies in the last 30 years. You're the first person your age with this problem. And so they cut me from around here under my left arm and spread me apart, went in and put clamps on either side of that thing and snipped it out and put a Dacron patch, a graft, in its place. I'm going to be okay. Isn't that great? And here's the Dacron patch and what it replaced. 1/2 inch in diameter across it, narrows down to 1/16 of an inch opening. The nurse said, when we find babies with your condition, we're resuscitating them in the emergency room. And this is the world-renowned physician, Dr. Ron Elkins, with yours truly, grateful to be here. It's been 6 weeks now, and a few more months I'll be completely recovered. And I think I'm going to be healthier than I've ever been. I'm looking forward to that. Now, I want to talk to you tonight about 666, calculating the mark. The study of numbers is a very important study in the Bible. Jewish gematria is sometimes looked down upon by Christian theologians because they don't understand it. John's use of numbers in the book of Revelation directs our attention to the historical and religious significance of an ancient form of Jewish gematria. There are the 7 stars in the right hand of Christ, the 24 elders before the throne, the 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 vials, the mark of the beast, 666, etc. signifies a use of gematria that made the Jewish mystics of the Dark Ages infamous. There are a lot of people who don't understand this, and so they condemn and look down on it. But E.W. Bullinger in 1894 wrote a book called Number in Scripture. in which he said, there can be neither works nor words without number. We can understand how man can act and speak without design or significance, but we cannot imagine that the great and infinite Creator and Redeemer could either work or speak without both his words and his works being absolutely perfect in every particular. In Job, for example, chapter 28, verse 25, the Bible says he weighs the waters by measure. Psalm 147:4, he telleth the number of the stars. And I want you to know the folks with the Hubble telescope don't know the number of the stars. Isaiah 40, verse 26, God bringeth out their host by number. So if we compare the numerical designs of nature with the use of numbers in the Bible, we will come to the overwhelming conclusion that the same divine architect was responsible for both. The number 7 is particularly important. In nature itself, in the gestation period of animals and humans, the gestation period is always a multiple of 7. For example, the gestation period of the mouse from conception to birth is 21 days, 3 times 7. For the rabbit and rat, it's 28 days, 4 times 7. For the cat, 56 days, 8 times 7. For the dog, 63 days, 9 times 7. For the lion, 98 days, 14 times 7. For a sheep, 147 days, 21 times 7. For the common hen, 21 days, 3 times 7. For the duck, 42 days, 6 times 7. For a human, 280 days, 40 times 7. 40, the number of testing, times 7, the number of spiritual perfection. So you see, the number 7 is quite significant by divine design. Why should there be 12 major constellations in the heavens? Why not 11 constellations or 13 constellations? Why? Because the number 12 is one of 4 perfect numbers: 3, 7, 10, and 12. 3 is the number of divine perfection. 7 is the number of spiritual perfection. 10 is the number of ordinal perfection, 10 commandments. And 12 is the number of governmental perfection. 12 constellations, 12 months of the year, 12 tribes of Israel, 12 disciples of Jesus, and so on. 7 is the number of spiritual perfection. While 12 is made up of 3 times 4, 7 is made up of 3 plus 4. 3 is the number of the Trinity, and 4 marks the number of material creation. In the book of Revelation, there are 7 lamps, 7 stars, 7 churches, 7 spirits, 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 personages, 7 vials of wrath, 7 new things in the holy city. John writes using the number 7. 7 seems to be the dominating number in the book of Revelation, and not only used as a numeral, but even in the occurrences of important words. For example, the name Jesus occurs 14 times, 2 times 7. 7 times by itself, Jesus, and 7 times as Jesus Christ. Lord appears 21 times, 3 times 7. Spirit appears 14 times, 2 times 7. These examples should be sufficient to show that in the works of God and also in His Word, there is perfect harmony, both in number and design. In the number 12, for example, the crown of 12 stars on the head of the woman in Revelation chapter 12, with the clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, conforms to the concept of governmental perfection. Her crown is a symbol of political authority. It speaks of ruling, governmental perfection. The 12 stars signify also the 12 tribes of Israel, who, as the wife of God, produced both the Messiah and His heavenly kingdom. They also represent the ancient story that's written in the 12 constellations of the heavens above. In Revelation 12, there are 12 stars. But in the opening chapter of the book of Revelation, Jesus holds only 7 stars in His right hand. Why not 12? Because these 7 stars represent Gentile Christianity, the church age. That's grace, folks. 12 speaks of law. 7 speaks of grace. They also represent the seven wonders of the heaven: the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. And these seven stars represent those whose relationship is marked by grace, whereas the 12 stars in chapter 12 speak of Israel who live under the law. 666, Revelation chapter 13 and verse 18. Isn't it interesting? It's chapter 13, the number of ill omen, and verse 18, which is made up of 6 plus 6 plus 6. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Now, in the Textus Receptus, that's the Greek translation of the New Testament, from which came the King James Version of the Bible, in Revelation chapter 13 and verse 18, just before Revelation 14:1, the last part of the verse talks about the number of a man, and the number of it is 666. Now, I want you to notice the Greek letters that form the 666 are a chi with a numerical value of 600, a xi with the value of 60, and a stigma with a value of 6. Notice that word stigma? It has come down to us as a mark upon a person's character, a stigma. Numerical value in the Greek of 6. Now, I want you to notice that I put a little box up there with those three letters, the chi, the xi, and the stigma. I'm going to flash them just a little bit so you can see them to get an idea of what it looks like in the Textus Receptus of the Greek. In the Greek alphabet, normally there are 24 letters, but in Bible days, the Greeks needed 3 more in order to conform to the number, the same number as in the Hebrew alphabet, 27 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And so the ancient Greeks inserted a stigma as the 6th letter, a kappa, which you see in colored yellow, as the 18th letter, and then following the omega, a samsi. Those 3 letters were added to bring the Greek alphabet in its numerical values from 24 letters up to 27 to help in the numerical values. In the Greek alphabet, alpha equals 1, beta equals 2, gamma equals 3, delta equals 4, epsilon equals 5, stigma equals 6, and so on, all the way through. And remember, Revelation 13:18 said, "Here is wisdom, let him that hath understanding count or calculate the number of the beast." Well, are we supposed to use the Greek alphabet? In the word Christos, which is the Greek word translated Christ, which in our English is Christ, the appearance of this these Greek numbers, the xi, the chi, the xi, and the stigma, consist of the first and last letters of Christos. You see that? The chi at the beginning and the stigma at the end. But there is a sigma in the middle. But in the number of 666, the number of the Antichrist, that sigma is changed to the symbol of a serpent, the xi. You see that? Now, in the panel above, you see the Textus Receptus Greek, but in the panel below, you can see the Westcott Hort Greek translation, from which, by the way, was translated most of the modern translations of the Bible. They did not use the Textus Receptus for the Revised Standard Version and other versions. They used the Westcott Hort. So if you'll notice at the end of verse 18, instead of the 3 letters that make up numerical value of 666, being the chi, the xi, and the stigma, they used 3 Greek words: hexakosioi, hexakonta, hex. And each one of those words, translated, of course, 666, is the hex. You see that? Hex, hex, hex. In case you wonder where that term came from when it says, I'm going to put the hex on you. It all comes from this mark of the beast, folks. Isn't that amazing? Now, in Egyptian mythology, Isis was a type of Mystery Babylon. Isis is the same moon goddess from Ishtar of the Babylonians. And it is spelled in Greek as sigma, sigma, sigma. So the stigma may be associated with the ancient Egyptian mystery religion, wherein sigma, sigma, sigma represented the symbol of Isis, thus forming a connection between the Egyptian female goddess and Mystery Babylon with a numerical value of 666, the mark of the beast. And that takes us back to ancient Babylon for the beginning of the history of this number, 666. In the days of the building of the Tower of Babel, the ruler of Babylon was a man named Nimrod. And Nimrod worshiped the stars. Here, by the way, is the ruins of the Tower of Babel, all that's left of it, on the valley floor near ancient Babylon. And Nimrod, worshipped Saturn. And Saturn is the word from which we get the word Saturday. And it refers also to the seventh day. And so in the seventh millennium, Saturn, who also became known as the Grim Reaper, as the judge with a sickle, is coming to judge the world. Now, according to Alexander Hislop, in his book, The Two Babylons, he writes, we have now only to inquire what was the name by which Nimrod was known as the god of the Chaldean mysteries. That name, as we have seen, was Saturn. Saturn and the mystery are both Chaldean words, and they are correlative terms. As mystery signifies the hidden system, so Saturn signifies the hidden God. To those who were initiated, the God was revealed. To all else, he was hidden. Now, the name Saturn in Chaldee is pronounced Satur, but as every Chaldee scholar knows, consists of only 4 letters, thus stir. The name contains exactly the apocalyptic number 666. S-T-U-R. But I want you to notice that this S-T-U-R is really Hebrew. Samik with the value of 60, Tav with the value of 400, Vav with the value of 6, and Resh with the value of 200, adding up to 666. So this goes back to ancient Babylon and the Tower of Babel and the god Saturn. The ancient cosmology that predates the Tower of Babel, by the way, in which God himself made the stars and put them in the heavens for signs, gave us the 12 constellations, each with 3 sidereal side pieces, for a total of 48 constellations, beginning with Virgo the Virgin, who will bring forth the Son of God. That's Bethlehem. And goes through all of those constellations till we reach the last one, Leo the Lion, seen jumping on Hydra, the many-headed serpent, with Crater, a bowl of wrath being poured out upon him, and Corvus, the bird, eating the flesh. That takes us to the book of Revelation, doesn't it? Now, the first 4 constellations tell the story of Bethlehem. The next 4 constellations tell the story of the church age, beginning with Pentecost, Aquarius, pouring out his Spirit upon all flesh. But the last 4, beginning with Taurus the bull, takes us to the end of days, to the second coming, to the days of the tribulation period. Taurus means the judge is coming. And those sidereal side pieces help tell the story, which I shall not go into tonight. The next constellation is Gemini, which has been seen, of course, in our modern cosmology as twins. But I want you to know that they, in the ancient cosmologies, represented a man and his wife, the groom and his bride. This represents the rapture, folks. Attending the coming of the judgment of God, the 7-year tribulation period, will be the rapture, and the very next one represents the resurrection. Cancer. Gemini, the rapture. Cancer, the resurrection. And Cancer, of course, today is shown as a crab. That is a creature that that sheds its skin periodically and comes forth with new life, so to speak. Well, it was the scarab beetle in the Egyptian cosmology. Same thing, he goes under a rock, the scarab beetle goes under a rock, emerges as a winged creature to fly away. It's like resurrection. Of course, cancer also represented with Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, not bears with tails, but sheepfolds. And these sheepfolds represent heaven, folks. And so we have the resurrection. The coming of the judge, rapture, resurrection concludes 7 years later with Leo the lion destroying Hydra, the many-headed dragon, and the crater or vials of wrath being poured out upon the seat of the beast, and Corvus the birds eating the flesh of the slain upon the battlefields of Armageddon. It's all there in the ancient star charts. Now, I'm telling you this because of Saturn and its name, adding up to 666. In The Two Babylons by Alexander Hislop, he writes the original name of Rome itself was Saturnia, the city of Saturn. And he says this was vouched alike by Ovid, by Pliny, and by Aurelius Victor, ancient Roman historians. So, in Roman numerals, if you take the I, V, X, L, C, and D and add them up, they come up to 666, that infamous number. Some Christian theologians have been led to believe over the past 400 years that the Pope is going to be that infamous person one of these days, whatever Pope in the future it might be, because on his crown are the words Vicarius Filii Dei, and in Roman numerals they add up to 666. The V in Vicarius equals 5, the I equals 1, C 100, I 1, V 5 for a total of 112. Then Filii, with the I equaling 1, L 50, and the other two I's, 1 each, for a total of 53. And the Dia, D equals 500, and I equals 1. Now, there are some letters in these words that have no numerical value in Roman numerals, but it's a total of 666. But that's using Roman numerals. But then there is another numerology that is used called an occult numerology, used by the New Age movement today, wherein the first 9 letters of the alphabet represent 1 through 9, and the next 9 letters, J through R, represent 1 through 9, and the next 8 letters, S through Z, represent 1 through 9. And Matthew Godwin, in his book Numerology, The Complete Guide, says that everything has to be reduced down to single digits. And this is the way he does it. For example, the word Carl has a numerical of 2, a 1, a 9, and a 3. But you add all those together and you get 15. But you still have to reduce it down to a single digit, so 1 plus 5 equals 6. So the word Carl ends up with a numerical value of 6. And then the word Von represents 4 and 6 and 5, which totals 15, but 1 plus 5 equals 6, so the numerical value of the word Von is 6. And then if you take the word Habsburg, for example, the letter H is an 8 and a 1, a 2, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 9, and a 7, totals 33, but 3 plus 3 is 6. So we have Karl von Habsburg, who's the son, by the way, of the man who put the European Union together, 666. I'm not here to tell you that he is the Antichrist. I am dabbling around in all of the various uses of this number. For John said, let him that hath wisdom count the number of the beast. So during World War II, there's some folks who thought that Adolf Hitler was the Antichrist, and they got it from another numerical system wherein A equals 100, B equals 101, C 102, D 103, E 104, and so on. So H in Hitler adds up to 107, I 108, T 109, L 111, E 104, R 117, for a total of 666. Well, I got to admit, Hitler was an Antichrist, all right. I fear he was not the final one. Then there are some who look at the Visa card and say, oh, the VI is Roman numerals for 6, and the S is ancient Greek for the stigma, and the A is Babylonian in the ancient sexagesimal system, wherein A equals 6, B equals 12, C equals 18, adding 6 to each successive letter of the alphabet. And so this became another method of calculation. And back in the 70s, of course, Mr. Kissinger's name added up to 666 using this method. Now, I believe John, in writing Revelation 13, was referring to Hebrew gematria as the source of identification. Whoever is destined to fill the role of the Antichrist is certain that his name in Hebrew letters will add up to 666. However, not everyone whose name adds up to the infamous number will be the Antichrist. Only one person. And so we've got a little bit of a dilemma here. You remember Saturn was the origination for this. Samekh equals 60. Tav equals 400. Vav equals 6. Resh equals 200. And this goes all the way back to the days of Nimrod and the Tower of Babel. And so John must have been alluding to this, surely. In Hebrew gematria, Nero was the first century Antichrist. And you know, it's possible that John was referring to Nero when he wrote that in Revelation 13:18. But of course, first you have to take Caesar Nero and change it to Hebrew, Kaiser Neron. And I got this out of the Zondervan Encyclopedia of the Bible. It's a 5-volume set. Kaiser with the Kof equaling 100, Samekh equaling 60, and Resh equaling 200 for a total of 360. And Neron with the Nun equaling 50, the Resh equaling 200, Vav equaling 6, and the Nun Sophit equaling 50 for a total of 306, total 666. Now the interesting thing about Nero is that he had Paul's head cut off. He was a wicked ruler. In The Coming Antichrist, a book written by Walter K. Price, he writes, the most famous Antichrist theory of the first century was that of Nero Redivivus. In AD 68, when the Roman Senate condemned Nero to death for his crimes, he fled to a suburban villa and there reportedly put an end to his own life. But rumors began to circulate that he had fled to the Parthians, from which he would come at the head of a great army to revenge himself upon the Roman world. Did Nero die? Did he really commit suicide, or did he fake his death and escape to come another day? Well, the belief that Nero would return was still in existence in the 5th century AD. For Augustine makes reference to it, saying, quote, others again suppose that he, Nero, is not even dead, but that he was concealed, that he might be supposed to have been killed, and now lives in concealment in the vigor of that same age which he had reached when he was believed to have perished, and will live until he is revealed in his own time and restored to his kingdom. Quote, St. Augustine, 5th century. Well, in 1938, Chaim Schaus wrote a book called The Jewish Festivals. I have the book in my library. He said that Nero escaped to live among the Jews and married a Jewish girl. He reported that Rabbi Meir, a famous rabbi in Jewish history, claimed to be a direct descendant of Nero. Will the future Antichrist come from Nero? Will he be a clone? I don't know. Will he be cloned in a UFO with alien technology? Or at the Roslin Castle in Edinburgh? The Hebrew gematria, Aleph equals 1, Beit equals 2, Gimel equals 3, Dalet equals 4, Hey equals 5, Vav 6, Zayin 7, Chet 8, Tet 9, Yot 10. Beginning with the 11th letter, Kaf, it changes then to 20, 30, and 40, and 50, 60, 70, and so on through 100. And then the Resh is 200, the Shin is 300, the Tav is 400. This is the Hebrew gematria, and it offers a more viable method than any of the others that we have seen prior for calculating the number of the Antichrist. However, even then, we must be careful not to be dogmatic, because I do not personally believe that we can foresee the Antichrist through this method. Now, Mr. Bashar al-Assad, Prime Minister of Syria, adds up to 666 in Hebrew, whereas Beit equals 2, Aleph 1, Shin 300, Hay 5, Aleph 1, Resh 200 for a total of 509. The Aleph equals 1, Lamed equals 30 for a total of 31. Assad, Aleph equals 1, Samik equals 60, another Samik for 60, another Aleph for 1, a Dalet for 4 for a total of 126. So 509 plus 31 plus 126 is 666. I am not here to tell you that Bashar al-Assad is the Antichrist. But it is interesting, you know, that he seems to be friends. But, you know, there are other people whose name adds up to 666 in Hebrew, too. I'm not here to tell you that he is, but his name sure adds up in Hebrew gematria under William. Vav equals 6, Aleph equals 1, Yod equals 10, Lamed equals 30, Yod equals 10, Mem Safid equals 40, for a total of 97. Jefferson, Yod equals 10, Pei equals 80, Resh equals 200, Samik equals 60, Nun Safid equals 50, for a total of 400. And Clinton, Kaf equals 20, Lamed equals 30, Yod equals 10, Nun equals 50, Tet equals 9, Nun Safid equals 50, for a total of 169. So 97 plus 400 plus 169 equals 666. Now, though these may be interesting, and though they are types of calculations to which John was referring, we can only speculate on the subject. We cannot determine beforehand the identity of the Antichrist based on this method, at least this method alone. However, it is important to note that John invites us to attempt the calculation. So, don't be afraid to try. And don't let anybody keep you from trying. Now, I found this picture, which I thought was kind of interesting. I have 2 lectures called Tickling the Tail of the Dragon. And I found this ancient medieval knight not tickling the tail of the dragon, but kicking the tail of the dragon. Let us not be afraid of the dragon. Let us preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and win people to him, and stand up against the Antichrist and stand up against the devil and his crowd and all he's trying to do to destroy this world and the human race. Let's kick the tail of the dragon. Thank you. I'm through. Somebody can come up here and take over while I shut this machine down. And God bless you. Don't forget the book table now. I'll be out there autographing your book. Okay?
Are you done? Are you done?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm done.
Praise God. Praise God. All right, yes, gentlemen. Okay. We have a big night tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Just in a few minutes, all our speakers, within the next 7 minutes, all our speakers are going to be on the platform. And something's going to be happening here, and along with some three or four of our guests.